Welcome to the CPO Rising podcast series brought to you by Products That Count, the world's largest nonprofit community, engaging over 500,000 product managers and chief product officers united by a mission to empower everyone to build products that truly count. In a world flooded with products, only a few ignite passion, deliver value at scale, and transform lives. Behind those exceptional products are visionary CPOs and high-performing product teams. We recognize these trailblazers through our coveted awards, accelerate careers from PM to the C-suite and beyond through daily best practices, and serve as the trusted advisor to nearly all Fortune 1000 CPOs. Our corporate alliance includes Walmart, Ford, Cisco, Johnson & Johnson, Amplitude, and more. The most admired product leaders across industries serve on our advisory council, guiding the future of product leadership. Together, we're shaping a future where every product counts. Learn more at productsthatcount.org. Produced in partnership with Capgemini and Moatti Capital, this series brings you exclusive conversations between our resident CPO, Renee, Niemi, and the 2025 CPO Award winners. Get ready for raw insights, real strategies, and the secrets behind their success. Let's get into it.
Renee, welcome to this discussion on CPO, Chief Product Officer trends. I'm actually dying to hear what's been happening in the last year.
Yeah, well, I'm
So good to
dying.
have you.
Thank you. I'm dying to tell you.
Mhm.
We have had so many amazing conversations, and this year is going to blow your mind. It is crazy what is going on.
Great, great. I can't wait. So to set the stage, this is our fourth year in a row doing this research. You've spoken with 1,000 chief product officers in the last
Yes,
couple of years.
yes, at least. Yeah, it's
Okay.
crazy.
Okay, so we're talking real numbers, and there's a kind of a quantitative part to our study, right? You have about 1,000 responses to a quantitative survey, and a qualitative hour-long conversation, correct, with these 1,000 or so CPOs?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So just to be super clear, let me put our big wrapper around this. We survey our database every year. So we have hundreds of respondents every year on the quantitative side. And from a qualitative point of view, I probably speak to between 7 and 10 chief product officers a week. So we have lots of input, lots of data. And what's really amazing is for the last 2 months, I've been really focusing my energy on what I would call the cream of the cream, our winners of our annual Chief Product Officer Award. So those are all the data points that I'm going to bring to the table.
Amazing. And Renee, I mean, many people who listen to this know you, but just to, sing your praises a little bit, you were one of the very first chief product officer of a Fortune 500, and you were one of only 5 general managers at Google. So you know what you're talking about.
Well, at the rate of which things are changing, I have to be honest with you. I feel like I know more now than I even did then. But yes, I definitely built upon my experiences. Things are moving quickly, and it's so exciting. Every once in a while, I actually get the urge to jump back in because it's such exciting times.
Yes. And the chief product officer you've spoken with are at companies like Walmart, Salesforce, Microsoft, Ford, just to name a few. So gigantic, massive innovation machines. Anybody else that particularly stood out?
Well, you certainly got a lot of the great names, but we also talked to mid-sized companies too, some pretty innovative ones like the CPO of Airtable, for instance, the CPO of Databricks. So we're getting a really nice mix of perspectives, some that were born digital and some that are in their own transformation. So it's the other thing that I will say is we make a point of being cross industry. So some of our verticals include retail, financial services, healthcare services, obviously enterprise software, traditional tech. Like there's a really, really nice cross-section of industries represented.
Amazing. Okay, and so that's like a culmination of all these hours and hours of conversations, survey. We've looked at the data forward, backward. We've cross-referenced with third-party sources. We have qualitative input. And my recollection, right? I'm going to do a fast forward on the last 3 years, and then you're going to lead us through the findings for this year. When we first did the study, it was in the middle of COVID, and we saw a massive jump of the number of Fortune 1000 appointing a chief product officer between 2020, where it was like 3-4%, and 2022, where it jumped to 30% of Fortune 1000 appointing a chief product officer. And at that time, I remember you made a massive distinction between the good CEOs and the great CEOs, and we kind of tracked those two. The good CEO who are managing their engineering, their roadmap, doing more with less, and then the great CEOs who are more business minded, thinking about the next. And then in our year 2, we said, hey, with all the uncertainty, right, the great CPOs are actually starting to manage P&L. They're more innovative. They're thinking about kind of key metrics. Good CEOs are still sort of navigating their digital transformations and kind of internal influence with engineering, marketing. And then in our year 3, we said, hey, the good CEOs are still working on, kind of their internal, getting into the C-suite and collaborating with other members of the C-suite. But the great CPOs are now rising to the role of CEO. And that was driven by a key new piece of information that we introduced last year, which was companies that have a chief product officer outperform financially, right? They do better in the stock market, they do better in private market as well. And that was like a key breakthrough where we said these chief product officers are now becoming chief executive officers, presidents. In fact, 20% of our winners got promoted to president or CEO within about a year.
Yeah, just an amazing jump in function, and much of that was led up from like that huge do or die transformation during the pandemic, started to settle in, and then all of a sudden you had all of these like massive, successful, well-rounded with a 360 view of the business leaders that are not only equipped, but very well equipped to be the next generation CEO. And we see it in the numbers.
Amazing. And so this year, I know that there's another kind of massive bomb you're going to drop, right? Like a big, big change. But let's kind of follow, like we had these good CPOs, we had the great CPOs. So lead us in, like what do we have in store for 2025?
Well, as you know, SC, and I'm sure everybody listening knows, the last 18 months, the world of AI has fundamentally changed product landscape. And everything from how a product is built, how the product is researched, all the way down to how you charge for the product, and everything in between has been touched by AI. And so this year, what we are seeing is a really big difference between the CPOs that are thinking about this incrementally versus those that are thinking about these transformationally. And so we've actually broken this up into 3, from good to great to the best. Just to give you a little preview, what we're seeing is the good CPOs continue to experiment with AI. They're starting to implement agent level efforts into the products. They're using agents to help do a little bit of discovery to kind of shorten up writing, PRDs, if they're still writing those, business cases, product marketing docs. So they're saving incremental 10-20% of their time. They may be using it a little bit on the customer support side of things and the customer insights side of things, collecting data and coming up with insights. But that's really where they stop. Okay, so those are the good CPOs. The great CPOs are really starting to think about AI as, wow, this is going to transform how I think about building products. And we'll call this organic transformation. So one of the amazing data points that we got this year is that the great CPOs are actually seeing a 4 times improvement on the time it takes to get a product to market. Not double, not triple, but 4 times. And we looked at the whole spectrum, like how long does it take to get to a mock-up? How long does it take to get to, a working prototype, MVP versus fully functional app? And especially on the build side of it, on the software programming side of it, the time went from literally months to days. It was that transformation. So now you can start to think, wow, the number of product managers to engineer ratio has started to come down. So what was 10-1 is now 2-1. And then they can start to look at, how do I invest those money differently? So as you can imagine, these CPOs, the great CPOs, are rethinking their org structures. By the way, something very similar conversation on the design side, maybe not quite as drastic because there was never the 10-1 ratio, but the design ratios are coming down as well. The best CPOs are order of magnitude thinkers. So they're doing everything the great CPOs are doing in terms of consolidating their ratios. They're, rethinking their orgs, but they're also thinking about inorganic growth because they know that if they can do this faster, that they have to be thinking not just incrementally better, not just 2 times better, but order of magnitude. What can I do to disrupt my business, or my business will get disrupted? And so these CPOs are very quickly buying up companies that specialize in AI so that they can enhance their AI talent. They are really looking at their product roadmaps, not from a lens of, get the current types of products I'm building out quicker, but they're looking at what new products can I completely reinvent to reinvent my business. So it's just it's mind-blowing, the difference in
Amazing.
good from great to best.
So Renee, like that's really, really impressive, really inspiring, right? Like good CPOs essentially keep doing their job, keep experimenting with AI, which is what we read about, everywhere. Like, oh, AI now is actually just an optimization thing. Um, does that mean they're still getting that internal pushback? People are afraid of losing their jobs. People are afraid of using AI. Is that sort of what's happening inside these organizations? And then what does that mean for them, like 2, 3, 5 years down the line?
Yeah, fear is a big deal, right? And especially at it's the job of the chief product officer to actually define what the new skill sets are in this new world, right? And so the really good leaders are the ones inspiring, the change in skill set, the focus on the skill set. But there is an overarching fear in what we would categorize as the good, where they're still trying to justify their jobs, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. if you project that like 5 years out, what does that mean for companies with good CPOs? Where are they?
I would be surprised if they're even around. I think they become obsolete.
Obsolete.
I mean,
Yeah.
4x, by the way, I was blown away when I saw this 4x number. And when we put all the data together and did all our crunching and it came out 4x, I was expecting 2x. Honestly, I was trying to justify 2x in 1 year. And so when I saw 4x, all I could think of is next year's going to be 10x. Like,
Hmm.
like we are so at the tip of the iceberg on what AI can do in terms of innovation and speed and so if you're thinking these CPOs that are thinking incrementally, they're A, going to be out of a job, and B, their companies are probably, if they're not out of business, they're going to be seriously handicapped.
Yes. It's essentially a do or die moment for the good CPOs. And I know you mentioned when we prepped, you said that's almost half of the CPOs you've spoken with in the last couple of years. Now, so that's a huge, huge burning platform for them. Um, if they, if I were one of them, I'd be worried. Now, what about for the great CPOs? You mentioned, they're rethinking their org. You said going from like a 1 to 10 PM to engineer to a 1 to 2. What about the skill set? Like, walk me through a little bit, like what you found there, in terms of the great CPOs.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, let me start with the fear because I think fear is a big motivator, right? They're past the fear of losing their job. They're now very focused on what the new roles are, and I'll talk about that in a minute. What they fear is they're looking over their shoulder saying, my competition's keeping up with me. They're constantly looking over their shoulder going like what's my competition doing? Who's going to disrupt me, right? So their fear is the market and the market speed. Let me go back to the roles where they have settled. And it's just really fascinating because we went through a phase even 2 years ago where we were seeing hyper specialization in product management. Like you had your growth product managers, you had your 0 to 1 product managers, you had your, sustaining product managers. Now, last year, we started seeing this move towards generalists, and AI continues to move the generalists, but now we're starting to see a very specific product management type called the AI product manager. And these are the people who know, like inside and out, how to use AI to leapfrog current solutions and solve net new customer problems that just weren't even possible before. And it's a very complicated set of equations. They're very deeply technical on data sets. They know where to get data sets. Like it's a very technical job. But these companies have really kind of bifurcated the role.
I see. So essentially, you have a split between the generalist PM, the specialist PM. The specialist PM is a specialist, like a master of AI tools and data sets. And the org itself is kind of realigning because of essentially fear of competition, right? I don't want to be obsolete in 5 years. I want to still be a contender. And so how am I keeping up with the others? Okay, so now we've talked about like, good was about 50, great, you mentioned it's about like 40 or so. The 10% best, what is it that they do?
Well, so first of all, let's talk about the fear. They're fearless, right?
Hmm.
They're really not worried about making a mistake. They're not worried about looking over their shoulder. What they're focused on is order of magnitude change. So we're in a disrupt or be disrupted state of business. It's so reminiscent of back when we were in the pandemic. But the difference is there was always going to be an end to the pandemic, and you could kind of squeak by if you weren't, one of the great ones. We're no longer there. Like, there is no end. This isn't going to get slower. This is going to get faster. This isn't going to go away someday. So these CPOs are fearless. They're absolutely fearless. And they're thinking they're thinking order of magnitude change. Now, they're responsible, right? These same CPOs are putting wrappers around, like making sure their platform is stable, making sure that they have, all of the data guidelines, the ethical guidelines, all of that has already been set. So now they're just building and imagining on top of that, and it's just absolutely. Honestly, it's just so fun to even being on the sidelines watching what they're doing.
That sounds amazing. And yes, like they had to spend the last couple of years building the platform, building the trust, cleaning up the data. I remember those conversations from last year was about better data was kind of the name of the game. Now that they have it, they're ready to jump. And with the mind-boggling stat, right? 4 times faster product development, definitely something that they cannot do with just organic growth. It totally explains the M&A. It totally explains the fearless, like if I don't grow 4 times, I'm going to be left behind. You're saying it's going to be 10 times next year. Those companies, some of the terms I've heard is, and of course, preaching to our own choir, is they're calling themselves product first. Do you want to elaborate a bit on this?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You and I have been talking a lot about this notion of product centricity for a while now, and for a long time, people were talking about, are you a product-led culture? That has all sorts of really interesting, almost negative opinions because everybody becomes very political. Oh, a product manager is leading the company. That is not what it means. What it means is that you are at the center of value creation for your customers, and the way you do that is the product. And that is the starting point of all business, right? You build your financial plan off of that. You build your go-to-market plan off of that. You build your sales plan off of that. So everything builds off of what value are you creating for your customer, and consequently, what value are you creating for your own business as a result of that? That's what product-centered means. And what was really interesting is when you start to look at, again, the framework, good, great, and best, almost 100% of what we categorize as best CPOs this year are product-centered.
Amazing. Renee, this is fantastic, and I know that there's a whole report with a lot more data, a lot more depths on these key trends that's about to get published on the Products That Count website. So, for the listeners who want to learn more, I definitely recommend that you check out this report. You and I have also been starting to put our heads together on defining that product first company, like what does it mean, and so our listeners can also kind of stand by and stay tuned for more on this. Is there something else you want to say on this year's CPO Insights before we wrap up?
The only thing that I will add was, first of all, we're also in the process of celebrating our winners for this year. We'll make all of those announcements at the beginning of next week, which is first week in April. And I will tell you that the winners this year are so inspiring. We've recorded podcasts. We're going to do, we have an entire year's worth of podcasts this year on all of these great conversations. Really encourage you to take a listen to them. But this is a make or break moment, a defining moment for not just CPOs, for product managers. So anybody reporting up, this is your moment, right? Product management is art and science. The art can't be replaced by AI, and that's where you lead. You lead with your judgment, you lead with your intuition, And because of that, the other more science-oriented colleagues, those roles are going to start to collapse. And, we would not be surprised that by 2030, there may be just one person in the product suite.
Well, so many things are evolving. It's just keeps getting more and more exciting. Renee, thank you so much for everything you do to drive the product and the CPO conversation. Can't wait to listen to the 50 podcasts with our 50 winners this year. And we'll be back soon with more detail on those trends.
Awesome. SC, always fun as always, is my favorite podcast of every year. So thank you for all you do as well.
Thank you.
This is SC Moatti again, founder and chair of Products That Count. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, be sure to leave us a review on your favorite platform, including Spotify and Apple. And please check out our other resources at productsthatcount.org. They're designed to accelerate your product career and make product the most important function in business. Until soon.